Welcome to Life-Changing Challengers, the podcast where passion meets purpose. I'm Brad Minus, your host, guiding you through stories of transformation and triumph, from endurance feats to overcoming adversity. Our guests defy the limits and inspire action. Ready to ignite your desire and incinerate your barriers? Join us. Your journey to the extraordinary begins now. And welcome back to another episode of Life-Changing Challengers. My name is Brad Minus, as always, and today, super excited to be talking to Tywin Kalandyk, my bad there, and we're going to be talking, he's an elite performance coach, his audience is mainly men. If you look at some of the testimonials on his website, they are absolutely amazing. You should see the before and after pictures. The guy knows how to get you jacked and how to get you to the best health and the best person that you could possibly be. So let's bring him in. Hey, Tywin, good to see you. How you doing today?
Hey, Brother Brad, I appreciate you having me on. But first thing, I got to correct you. And I understand why this happened, because I'm the first Black Polish guy you've ever seen. So the last name, it's actually Kalandyk. But we're all good. Brother. I'm glad to be on, man. It was the Polish thing. It threw you off. You're not used to it.
Yeah, it must be, and I apologize, but Kalandyk.
But we're good. Let's go. Let's Tywin.
We got it, Kalandyk. Yeah, I can't believe I missed that again. Okay, great. But anyway, Tywin, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood? You know, what was the complement of your family, and you know where you grew up, and what was it like to be Tywin as a kid?
Yeah, Brad, that's actually such a great question, and I'm glad you asked, because you know, growing up, things were a little bit interesting for me. You know, I was actually born right into foster care. My biological mom was a prostitute, addicted to drugs, and had a drinking problem. So she couldn't really even take care of herself. So taking care of me was definitely not an option. So as soon as I was born, I was put into foster care, which is probably one of the best things that have ever happened to me in my life. I ended up being adopted rather early on by an amazing family. So I grew up in a household with 3 other brothers, 3 other sisters, a mom and a dad that loved me just like I was their own. So it was awesome. And then, you know, as growing up as a child, one of the things for me is I really took a liking to sports. I realized when I was playing sports, I would get attention. You know, so very early on, I'll never forget, I'll tell you a very quick story. I was playing flag football, and I was just out there doing my thing. And I remember winning a game, and I looked over the sideline, and my dad was jumping up and down like I had won the Super Bowl. Now, meanwhile, I'm like 7. So I'm like, wow, this is a way to like garner attention. So at that very moment, I immediately just started identifying, if I can get really good at sports, I can get attention from everybody. So that's probably my first love or first dive into sports. And it's kind of where it all started.
Well, what would you say? What was your age about that time?
I was 7 years old.
7 years old playing flag football.
7 years old. Yep.
That's amazing. So you said 3 brothers, 3 sisters?
3 brothers, 3 sisters. Yep.
You had 7 kids in the house?
Yeah. So my parents, they had 3 biological kids, and then they adopted 4 of us.
Wow. You know, bless your parents.
They're amazing.
Absolutely.
They're so amazing. And the cool thing, but sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, was, man, I grew up in this household because I was the only Black kid. Like, my parents were white. My brothers and sisters were white. It was the coolest thing ever. And we always were around all these different ethnicities, there were so many people around, which I realized as an adult, it gave me a perspective of the world that I think a lot of Black people honestly don't have. Because I'll talk to a lot of people and I can't relate to a lot of the stuff they say, because I've seen firsthand how amazing white people can be, Asian people can be. I wasn't trapped in this little bubble. And so I don't have that same cognitive bias that a lot of people have. So I'm very, very fortunate and grateful I grew up that way, because my worldview is probably a little bit different than most people's because of that.
I can only imagine. I can't fathom it, but I can't imagine it. I also grew up in an area that was completely diverse. I had Black friends, I had Filipino friends, I had Chinese friends, I had Laotian friends. You know what I mean? So I was very lucky in the same way, where that was just never an interest, you know, I hate bringing it up, but as far as, because in this current atmosphere, we have this whole racism card that's being played, but I didn't realize it
Yeah.
I mean, I never knew anything about it. They were just people to me. There was never, I don't want to say colorblind. I would say that to me, it was always just an adjective.
Yeah.
You know, the same way someone's got brown hair, they have dark skin. That's it. Nothing ever got any. We never thought about it. We ate at each other's houses. We had sleepovers. We played mailbox baseball. You know about mailbox baseball?
No, never heard of that game.
Okay, well, this is in the Chicago suburbs, basically, and it's bad. It's not a good thing. But we had somebody that had a truck, and we all got into the bed of the truck with a baseball bat and with
taking off the mailboxes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We just didn't have a name for that. We did it. We just didn't have a name for it. I didn't know they were great. Yeah. What did you guys call it?
Mailbox baseball.
Oh, so it makes sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, we did all that and never thought of it, never even thought of anything above it. When I went to college, same thing. And, it's just and today now, like I see more of it now because I have to pay attention to it. And it's just, I don't know. I wish I was I wish I was back, back then when it just wasn't in front of me like that. But anyway.
Oh, you know what? I have to share this cool story with you.
Please.
I have to share this cool story because probably my favorite people to talk to are actual racist people, which most people aren't racist. It's just a word that unfortunately people slang around today just when they don't like what someone has to say or whatever. That's not really racist. But so my dad, before I came along, my dad was actually racist. But here's why. He was racist because he grew up in Detroit. Every single day when he used to go to school, he used to get beat up by a group of black people. So that's why he had this stigma, because that's all he knew. So then when I came along, he immediately fell in love with me. And again, there were 7 of us. He probably would have never said this out of his own mouth, but I guarantee I was his favorite kid. Hands down, no question, I was his favorite kid. And I say that because no one is born a racist. That's something that's taught. But just like it's taught, it can also be changed. So a lot of times we edify people's belief system. Like the fastest way to change someone from being a racist is show them you're the complete opposite. So I love having those conversations with people because a lot of times it's just how they grew up. It's just their lived experiences. So, yeah.
I get it. You know what? My dad, to me, started being the same way. It seemed like it to me. Yeah. I'll never forget a story he had. And this is also association, right? Now, he went to school in a tough neighborhood as well in Chicago. And he started this business. And it was kind of like a showbiz, Chuck E. Cheese type of thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't as elaborate, but he had this big giant game room and a movie theater and and a concession stand and stuff. And a guy came in and started, a few guys would come in every once in a while and cause some trouble. And he finally kicked one of them out. And he's like, "Oh, you don't like me because I'm black. You're just prejudiced." And he goes, "I'm not prejudiced. I hate all you." I'll never forget that. That was the best story ever.
Man, I love it. I miss the times when we can just say what we wanted to say and people wouldn't get so offended. Look, it's okay if people disagree with you or think differently. Like that's how it's supposed to be. And that's what makes America America. Like I pray that we can get back to that day when people just honestly say, like, that's the beauty of free speech. It's the beauty of it. You can't censor people. I don't care what their opinion is. When you start censoring people, that's a very, very slippery slope. And so I hope we go back to that.
Yeah, no. I totally agree with you. And I think that, I think we're on that path. Mm-hmm. It's going to take some time, but I think we're finally getting to that point where people are just fed up with the censorship and the idea that, well, if you say one thing, like our comedians should have carte blanche if they're in the middle, of a set, they're telling jokes, they should have carte blanche. It shouldn't be a big deal because a lot of it is really funny.
It is.
I mean, it's just funny.
It is. And it always has been.
Yeah. And you just let it happen. And somehow we've, with cancer culture and everything else, we've gotten away from that. But then, you know what? We're not here to talk about that. We can have that conversation in a different podcast, but I want to know more about you.
Yeah.
So 7 years old, you're playing flag football and you see your pops out there and he's like jumping up and down and he's really excited for you. So you decided to move on with that. Did you play any of the sports or you kind of stick to football?
No, I played everything. Every track, basketball, baseball, every single sport I played. But I actually really took a liking to basketball. Like I was a big Michael Jordan fan. I still am a big Michael Jordan fan. anybody's listening to this, and we're not going to try to compare LeBron and Jordan because there's just no comparison.
Oh, no.
Like, I love watching Jordan and all the greats. There were so many great basketball players back then. So that was my thing. And when at a very young age, by the time I hit 5th grade, I was 6 feet tall. So this was awesome. So I was dunking in 5th grade, and I'm like, I'm going to the NBA. Doctors telling me I'm going to be like 6'8". So every single waking second, like, I'm playing basketball. Like, you couldn't keep me in the house. And by the time I hit 8th grade, I still had not grown. I've been 6 feet tall since 5th grade, never grew any more since. So when I hit 8th grade, people started catching me at that point. And in basketball, 6 feet is like, you're a guard at best. Like that's not tall at all. So now, meanwhile, I've grown up playing. I was a center my whole life because I was the tallest kid. So I don't have the dribbling skills. I don't have the shooting skills. So the football coach comes over and said, look, you might be able to get a Division II scholarship, maybe a Division I, but doubtfully. But he's like, I can guarantee I'll get you a Division I scholarship. And I was like, okay, in football. So I was like, okay. Then right then and there, my mindset shifted. I'm like, let's do this football thing. And went all in football.
Yeah. And what grade? That was 8th grade?
That was 8th grade.
Wow. So you walked into playing football in organized. Well, I guess you played flag football.
Yeah. No, I was already playing football.
Oh, you were?
I didn't. So when I say, like, I go all in on things.
Right.
So, and I didn't realize this because my whole life I've always been around like high level athletes. So playing AAU and travel ball. I never played with people who were just playing just to have fun. Like, in no sport. Like, I just never did. I didn't even know that existed. I didn't know people just played to have fun. Thought you were playing to like make it to the next level or be the top. I just have always been raised, if you're going to do something, you do it. You don't just go through the motions. So that's when I really went all in on football. Like, all in.
Awesome.
All in. So.
Yeah. You know what? I had a coach. His name is John Noland. And hey, John, if you're listening, John had this saying. He's like, if you're going to race, and if you're going to toe the line, you toe the line, you are all in. Meanwhile, I've done a numerous amount of clients where I've been saying, okay, you're going to do this race as a training race. So you go out there, run it as a workout. We're going to have certain things that you're going to work on during the race. And it's basically a training workout with 20,000 of your favorite people.
I think that's a different mindset, and that's acceptable. So for me, that's you're supposed to do that, especially in running, 100%.
Well, yeah, and I'm saying it's just two separate coach methodologies. But I will say that when my coach John, and that with that mindset, I will say that I progressed faster, better, and stronger than I did under my own methodology. But my own methodology is not meant for that.
Yeah.
My methodology that I bring to my clients is more about doing the distance, finishing it strong, and finishing it with a smile. That's my method. That's the methodology that I use. That's the theory that I use because of my audience and my audience, basically.
That makes
not his audience. His audience is elite. You go strong. You always go strong, and if you're not ready for the race, you don't toe the line. And that's it. No ifs, ands, buts about it.
Got it.
But I will say, like, again, I was faster, stronger, and better under that methodology than when I proposed my own. But that's neither here nor there. But that's basically what you're saying is that, every single one. It's kind of like the Rudy mentality, right? Even though that he was,
and I was at a very young age. That started, I was playing 4th and 5th grade, playing AAU travel ball, I grew up in Michigan. So going to Florida, going to California, going to Chicago, going to Hawaii, going to New York. So we weren't just going for fun. Like, it was the only, I've noticed AAU is different now because my son plays AAU ball and like anybody can get on the team. It wasn't like that when I grew up. Like, it was only the best people from each area were on the team. Yeah. Like, if you didn't make your school team, you're not playing on AAU. But it's just changed a little bit. So
yeah, I've got the same thing. So I coach track and field and I coach cross country for high school out here.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody makes the team. And the AAU swimmers and the AAU track people, they all my track that both do AAU and high school, same thing. They all make the team and they all and they all participate. But yeah, it was much different. Even the divisions were much different.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of that.
Now
That's
out here,
how life is. And it's not because of the sport. It's not that. It's the habits that breeds and the mindset that breeds after all of it. Because that is not, life is not at all like that. It's not how it works. So that's why I'm not a fan of that way of doing things. Like everybody gets to play, and it's just a bad thing to teach people, in my opinion.
No, and I agree, because life's competition, right?
It is.
We compete for jobs. We compete in sports. We still compete in sports. Everything is a competition. You compete for it now, with housing where it is, you're competing for a house.
Correct.
Everything that you do in life is a competition. When you do get into the job, you want that next step up and you're fighting for that. It's always a competition. So why not develop that in our kids at least,
And it's even more competitive now than ever because of the internet. You're not just before you'd only compete with maybe people that were local, people maybe in your state. You're literally competing with people around the world in everything, for a wife, for a job, for all these different things. You're competing. So if you have the mindset of like, I'm just going to get by and skate, life's going to be pretty challenging for you. You're going to run out. It's going to be hard. Life's hard for everybody, but you're like setting yourself up for some massive failures. And this is one of the things that I preach to my guys when I'm working with them. I'm like, no. We're training for life. It's more than what we're doing here in this gym.
I couldn't agree more. What about school? What were your grades like in high school? And
you know what? School actually came really easy to me. I was just the kind of person where let me go back. So in school, you have to turn in homework, which to me, homework was stupid. If I can pass the test without doing the homework, why do I need to do the homework? That's just keeping me away from sports. So my one problem with school is I would never turn in my homework. I would ace all my tests, but I just wouldn't turn in the homework. I thought it was dumb. So sometimes I got away with that. Because teachers kind of understood, like, okay, well, he understands the information. He's passing his test. But then some teachers it wouldn't fly with. But I was actually a really good student in school. I just never liked to do homework. I didn't study. I just never liked studying. But later on in life, I realized it wasn't that I didn't like studying. It wasn't like I didn't like learning. I just didn't like learning what they were teaching me, because I'm an avid fan of education. I probably spent more on education than people who went to some very expensive colleges. Super important. But I'm just not a fan of the way the school system is set up. So
I get that. My nephew was the exact same way. Yeah. My nephew would learn everything. And the teachers would be like, I don't even know if Legend is listening. That's his name.
my son.
I don't even know is he. Oh, really?
Yeah, it's my youngest son's name.
All right. Nice. And Legend was like, when he was mainstreamed, and don't get me wrong, he had a little bit of ADHD type of thing, but same thing. He didn't look like he was listening. But
yeah.
But
how old is he?
Scores, now he's 25. But back then when he was in high school and before high school, they're like, we don't even know if he's listening, except that when he goes and he does the tests, he gets hundreds and 99% and 98.5s and everything else, but doesn't do his homework.
Yeah.
And that was, so my sister-in-law finally found a school that kind of worked with that. The school, the philosophy of the kids is that they didn't have homework. They had an extra study hall, and they did all their homework in school. And then they had certain classes that were extended. So when it wasn't 50 minutes, it was an hour and a half, because 40 minutes was getting whatever assignment done. So everything was done at school. When you left school, it's kind of like a job, right?
Yeah.
If it's a regular job, you leave your job at your job and you go home and you spend time with your family. Yeah. It was the same.
Don't get me started on school, because on that. That's a bad.
See what I mean? We've got you and me, we've got a ton of freaking great podcasts in us. It's awesome.
How ripped into school. But shout out to all the teachers out there and coaches.
Absolutely.
Because there's some coaches and teachers that made a huge difference. So it's not them. They're just doing what they're told and what they have to do, because there is some amazing, amazing coaches and teachers out there. So I do want to make sure I do say that. But the actual schooling system is terrible.
I agree. But Florida's getting better. When I first came here, we were like 45th in the nation, and we're like 7th now. So it's not bad, as far as comparatively to everybody else, but I get it. So All right. So you went to, so in high school, you went all in on football.
Mhm.
Did you get that D1 scholarship?
Yeah, I ended up going to the University of Central Florida to play football. Yep.
UCF.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you play all 4 years?
No, I actually ended up leaving early. I left early. So by the time I got to college, I had 2 kids already. And I ended up leaving early. And again, I'm the kind of person, I'm either all in or I'm not in. And I was in my second year. And sometimes it works out. Well, it always works out good. But sometimes it's maybe the smart thing to do. Sometimes it's not. And I remember I was going into my third year. And I just felt this overwhelm because you can't work when you're a full-time college athlete. You can't work. You're just you're not allowed to. And I was like, man, I have a responsibility to start taking care of my kids. So I can sit here in place. And I think I probably would have had a shot at the league, or I can, start taking care of these kids. And I just made that decision. It started eating me up inside. And I'm like, you know what? I'm done. Lost the love of it. And once you lose the love for something, at least for me, I refuse to keep doing it. So I walked away from it. A lot of people were highly upset, but it all paid out.
Yeah. So what'd you end up doing?
Oh man, when I first went, I went to like everybody else, you get in the real world and you find out, wow, this is a little different. I think especially from going from when you've been a high level athlete your whole life, you're used to life being a certain way. I kind of relate it to when I hear people say they get out the military and they got to adapt to, civilian life. It was kind of the same thing. Like, so I get a regular job. First job was at the airport, SkyCap, which I loved. It was great. Got to meet a lot of people. From that, I moved on to selling cars. From that, I went on to selling insurance. From there, I was like, this working for some other people it's just not for me. It's for some people, but it wasn't for me. I don't like people telling me what to do, when I can take a break, when I can go to the bathroom. So I was like, let me figure out this entrepreneurship thing. And that's when the fun really began.
Nice. Hey, so just so there's even more, there's even more similarities in the two of us. I did sell cars for about 3 months before I felt like scum of the earth. And I was like, nope. I can't do that. I sold insurance. I sold insurance for a year, and it just happened to be that the product that I was selling, it was Arizona at the time. They were just trying to get started and they couldn't break into the market, and they ended up leaving the market. And then I spent 9.5 years in the military. And anybody tells you that transitioning. Now, it's different for operators. If you're an operator and you're going into civilian life, different story. But, for every operator out there, there's 7 supporters.
Okay.
Either behind a desk, doing staff, doing whatever. There's 7 other people. Those 7 people, it's a job. When I was at the Pentagon, besides the fact that we met at like 4:30 in the morning for PT, it was like an office job with a mandatory PT program.
Got it. Yep.
When I got called back in later on, which is how I got to Florida, and then I ended up going across the pond. That was a different story for OEF and OIF. That was completely different. But for my first tour in the military before I ended up separating the first time, that's basically what it was. It literally was. Even in Korea, it was like, get up, go to work, come back, play. And that was it. But yeah, so anybody sitting there telling you that, they have to transition back into civilian life unless they're an operator, then I tend to disagree with that a little bit. Yeah. So all right. So what was your first step into entrepreneurship?
So very first step into entrepreneurship was in real estate investing. This was actually right after the crash, which was
2008.
Yeah, right after the crash in 2008, which was a beautiful time to come in and buy. I remember my very first deal, I bought what was it? It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath for $50,000 in Orlando.
What?
Turn around and here's the kicker. Because especially at the time, like I was broke too at the time. My bank account was in the negatives when I bought it. It's the wildest thing ever. And then I ended up selling it like a couple weeks later for $105,000. Easy.
Oh,
yeah.
That was a nice flip.
Yeah. That's when I realized when I went into as an entrepreneur and I got into real estate, I started to learn, there's other ways. Like we don't get paid for time. My mindset was like, okay, trading time for money. I was like, there's a lot of different ways to do this out here. So that's when my mind really started expanding and I started growing in a way that I've never grown before.
Tell us a little bit more about that. Let's delve into that a little
Yeah.
bit. So, as far as expanding your brain, because I think that's a really good analogy as far as expanding yourself past that time for money. Because I think that's something that probably 85% of the people out there are doing that. They're trading time for money. Where did that expansion come from? Did it come from the fact that it was only 2 weeks and you made $55,000, or was it something?
No, it was before I even made the money. Before I even made the money, I knew it because I had this. Okay, so we all have this cognitive bias. We only know what we know. I'd never been around entrepreneurs. I didn't know any business owners. I didn't even know it existed. But around that time, it kind of started getting a little buzzword. As a matter of fact, I had to look up what entrepreneurship meant. That's just how green I was. But it was something that attracted me to it. So, we live in the information era. So if you want to know something, you can know it. So if anybody's listening to this and like, oh, I don't have the money for this, the information is out there. And it's really the information that's probably the most important thing, because I didn't realize this, but there's a lot of people that have a lot, at the time I didn't know, they have a lot of money, but they don't know what to do with it. It's just, they literally do not know what to do with it. So I had the information, and then I found people with money, and then I found out they would give me the money to go do the work, and then I just had to give them some of the return. Like it was wild. I didn't know that existed. So I got around, my circle shifted. I started going to these investor groups. I'll tell you a quick story. I'll never forget. It's Winter Park, Florida. I go to this investor meeting. Picture this. I walk in. Now keep in mind, at this time, I'm 24 years old. I'm dressing like a 24-year-old black kid that listened to hip hop his whole life. Just picture that. So I walk in. There's a room full of, I'd probably say average age, like 50 to 65-year-old married white couples. And it was almost like you heard the music stop. Everybody turns their head and like, who is this guy and why is he here? He must be lost. So again, I don't care. I just go right to the front of the room because I know that's where leaders always sit in the front. I ain't sitting in the back. Sit right down in the front. The guy starts explaining, and they were teaching you about investing and flipping houses and all this stuff. I didn't know anything. So he goes, they start teaching, and probably 2 minutes in, I raise my hand. I'm like, I don't know what that means. Can you explain that a little better? And then he explains whatever the topic was. And then he goes on to teaching again. And probably within the next 2 minutes, I raise my hand. Excuse me, can you explain what that is? I don't know what that is. And I hear everybody chuckling and laughing because it was basic terms that people should have known, but I didn't. And I wasn't going to sit there and act like I did because I was there to learn. And I'll never forget, they go on stage and the guy they call it deal of the month. So it's whoever has the best real estate deal of the month. They kind of break down what they did, how they made the money. And I just, from that moment on, I started envisioning myself. I said, one day that's going to be me up there telling the story. Sure enough, 3 months later, because we met once a month, at the next event, I had the deal of the month. I was on stage. 90 days later, I was up there teaching the same people that were laughing at me how to do real estate.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Are you still doing that?
No. So I had a great streak for 18 months, crushing it. And then I took on a business partner and I didn't realize it, but she embezzled $500,000 from our company. So that was my 18-month run. And then it was that's when I learned because I had been broke before, that wasn't not new to me. But I didn't know you could go below broke. You can shoot way past zero. And I was like, and again, I'm so grateful I learned that. It was such a powerful lesson, because anybody that's ever been in business, you're going to get burned. And I would rather get burned early on, because to be honest, I wasn't mentally ready for the money I was making. It was coming way too fast. So I'm glad it happened, because who knows what would have happened. It wouldn't have been good. I wasn't ready for that kind of money.
I was 19 years old. I left school. My second year, I left school. Basically, I was in an arts program, and basically all my advisors were saying, you're not learning. You're in the classes, you're there, but you're not learning. We're not thinking this is the best thing for you. And I was like, well, F you, and I'm going to find something else, and I'm going to come back here. I'm going to get my degree from you, is basically what I said, but I'm going to leave and I'm going to figure it out. And I left and I needed to make some money. And I ended up going to downtown Chicago and I found this ad and they were like, we'll train you to be a stockbroker. And all I thought was money, money, money. I'm like, I'm going to be a stockbroker. And I walked in there and they like gave me this test and it was a lot of math and stuff. And I wasn't crazy about math, but I was good at it. And they're like, oh yeah, you're going to be great here. And they basically said, you take a couple months, you'll pass the Series 7, Series 633, we'll put you on the floor. And yeah, my first 6 months, I was on course at 19 years old to make like $90,000 that year.
Wow.
Which compared to the rest of the guys that were there was low.
Wow.
But it was going to be I was on course to do that. I mean, I'm still living at home and I'm walking in. I walked into the Armani shop that I'm like, my first suit, $1,200. I'll never forget it. And this is the 90s, right? That's expensive.
You're balling.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I'm going to have one good suit, It was great. But yeah, and basically the same thing. The market toppled and a little bit. Oh, by the way, that was during the time I went to 3 playoff games. I went to 3 Bulls playoff games during the three-peat.
Yeah, we got a lot in common because at that time that's when I flew out. I went and seen the Super Bowl. I went and seen the Steelers were playing, the Steelers and the Packers.
Oh, yeah, Packers. Oh, yeah, I don't envy you for that.
No, you know what? It's just you know what? It was okay, quick story. So it was because the year before, and again, when I do something, I go all out. So when I went and did this entrepreneur thing, like I dove right in. Yeah, I remember my friends called me. It was the Super Bowl time. And they called me. They're like, hey, what are you doing? Like, come over. We're all watching the game. I'm like, I can't. I got to work. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, come over. It's Super Bowl. I'm like, I can't. I have to work. And again, they're making fun of me, laughing. And again, in that moment, I'm like, next year, I'm going to the Super Bowl. Like, I'm going to prove them wrong. So sure enough, next year, Super Bowl came. I called them. Hey, guys, what are you doing? Oh, we're watching the Super Bowl, man. Come over. I was like, I can't. I'm at the Super Bowl. And they're like, what do you mean you're at the Super Bowl? I'm like, I'm at the Super Bowl. And
look at the camera. I'm waving my hand.
It was such a, it was such a great feeling. It was such a
Okay, so I've been to one. I've been to a Super Bowl, and it happened to be the one with Brady and when he was on Tampa.
Ooh, that was a good one.
Yeah, it was a good one. But that is an amazing experience. I mean, like I've been to football games before, but that was different.
You know what was? So they had this because I got my ticket from StubHub. Which was an expensive ticket. Yeah. But what I didn't realize when I got there was there's so many people like that's their thing. I was talking to people that are like, oh, this is my 10th Super Bowl. This is my 13th. This is my 7th. And again, you start getting in proximity of people who live a different life. I was in a line to get my tickets. And I'll never forget, there's a guy in front of me. He had his whole family there, his wife, his kids. There's probably like 8 of them. And he goes to get his tickets from the StubHub, like actually pick them up. And they're like, sir, these are fake tickets. You bought fake tickets. Like you have bought fake tickets. So I literally seen him right there. He dropped like $40,000 for a new set of tickets. And again, my mind expanded because it was like no problem. He's like, okay, well, just what I got to do to get more tickets. And then she told him the price and it was like, I've never experienced this stuff. So again, you start getting around. This is why I always tell people, get around elite people and whatever, like get around people who have more than you, who are going places that you want to go or doing stuff you can't fathom. Because when you start hanging around people like that, it rubs off on you. It forces you to level up. That's why I don't believe in playing average. I think that's the dumbest thing to do in the world. It just doesn't make any sense at least in my brain. It doesn't make sense. Are you going to be the best at everything you do? Probably not. But I guarantee when you get around elite people, it forces you to level up. It forces you to. So,
yeah. I get it. Are you a fan of David Goggins by chance?
Yeah. He's part of the reason I ran my first ultra.
Oh, yeah? He freaking astounds me.
Look,
because I mean, yeah, when you talk about going to the edge, man, if you read those books, did you read? I'm assuming you read his books.
I read his books. Yeah, I think he needs a warning label on all his stuff, because when when an elite athlete or someone who like is real competitive reads that, they're like, oh yeah, I can do that. No, that's not a good idea. Go see Brad. Get you a coach. Because I did exactly what he did, and I ran my first 50-mile race. I trained exactly 29 days for it. Yeah.
That was your
I
first
ran.
one? Is it your first long distance race?
Yeah. The only thing I ran before that was a 5K.
Yeah.
And that was like for fun. Like, I was just like the turkey trot or whatever. But someone said, they're like, "Oh, you're not a runner." And I was like, "I'm not a who?" They're like, "You can't run long distance. You're too big." I think at that time I was like 215, 6', 215, like pretty solid. Well, very solid. And I'm like, I can do this. So I started looking up marathons because I was like, well, long, that's long. I didn't know how long it was, but I'm like, I heard that's long. That's what people do. And then while I was looking for a marathon, I started realizing like everybody runs marathons. Like old people run marathons. I'm like, this isn't proving anything. And I stumbled upon ultramarathons. I didn't even know that was a thing. Like I didn't know the human body could physically go that far. I mean, 50 miles is a long way in a car. So I was like, oh, this is a thing. Then that's when David Goggins came, and I was like, oh, because in my head, I'm like, oh, I should probably train. I don't know, maybe how long for this, but listening to David Goggins, I was like, he just went on and did it. I'm like, eh. So I found the nearest race, the soonest one. I live in Florida at the time. It was in Michigan. And when I grew up in Michigan, first of all, it was flat. So I'm like, I'll book that. It was 29 days away. So I started training. Had no idea how to even train for this, how to eat for this, nothing. But again, naive as I am, 29 days later, I show up in Michigan. Lo and behold, it's on a ski resort, which is, I didn't know there's like, it's hilly in parts of Michigan. It was a fun experience.
Was it a loop?
No, it was not a loop. I did not want to do a loop.
If you ever decide that you want to pick that up again, actually a loop course is great because you don't need to carry like everything with you, or you don't have to wait for an aid station. Because if you go a loop, then you come back to base.
I don't know if my brain
could grab it, and then you count down the loops, and it's not for me either. I'm more like you, but if you ever get to try it, there are definitely some advantages to it.
Oh, I'm going to do it again. There's no way I'm not doing it again, and I will, because I will cut 100.
Count down the loops. You know what I mean? Like you're like, all right, well, I got 50 loops, whatever, or 40 loops. All right, 39, 38. And you can, as you're counting down, it just gives you a little bit of a mental boost. I only got one way to go. Once you get over the halfway mark, you're like, oh, I'm halfway done. This is easy. I can get this. But when you're just going after miles and it's just like, you can't see the end, and it's just like out there. Sometimes it plays funny tricks with you. But like, again,
my brain's the opposite.
Exactly.
My brain is the complete opposite. Like counting down, that would be terrible. Going at something, I have no problem doing that.
All right. Then
even when we're doing exercise and stuff, sometimes I'll work out with random people and I'll get to the halfway point and they're like, you're halfway there. I'm like, why would you say that, you idiot? Like, don't tell me where I'm at. Like, if you're going to say it, wait till I'm like, I have 2 more left. Don't tell me I'm halfway. Like I'm in pain already. So I'm like, my brain is the complete, I hear what you're saying. And it probably does work for a lot of people. For me, that would be even worse. It would be so hard because as soon as it'd be terrible.
The advantage is a lot more logistical as well. So a lot of people, and my people, they have their own formulas. Like I have it all developed for them. We know exactly how many calories they need, how much salt, how much carbs, how much protein that they're going to need for every hour. Like literally it's by the hour. And then by the hour, we also know that when are you going to take it in? You're going to take it in 15-minute increments, 20-minute increments, whatever. And they know exactly what they're going to take and when, right? So having the loop, they don't have to carry all that.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, they can drop by, they have a crew, pick it up on the way out, and they just keep going. So logistically, sometimes it's better. But I get with you because I don't like loops either.
No, that makes sense. I get that. And you'll probably appreciate this, probably get a good chuckle out of this. So when I don't know anything about, I've never ran a marathon, especially in Awesome. I don't know anything about it. So I first get there and I'm looking, first of all, I am by far the most muscular person there. There's no one that looks anything like me, not even close. So again, my athlete brain kicks in like, who are these people? Like, this is going to be easy. This is just how naive I was. Start running, doing pretty good. And again, I had trained when I was training down here in my practice I had ran a 30-miler. So I was, and I felt good afterwards. And I was like, oh, this is going to be easy. Well, you start adding elevation, things change very quickly. Then I didn't know anything about, you're supposed to eat. Well, I knew you were supposed to eat when you do it because obviously you burn a lot of calories. I didn't understand what kind of stuff you're supposed to eat. I'm like chicken, broccoli, like brown rice. That's my kind of eating we do. I didn't understand. I wasn't thinking like, okay, well, it's going to take, first of all, forever for your body to break this down. So I'm like, they're eating like chips and like gummy bears and like goo and all of this stuff. I'm like, again, I'm naive. I'm like, these idiots, they're eating all this stuff. They have no idea what to do. Oh my, by mile 25, I'm like throwing back coat. Thankfully, in the running world, everybody's super nice. It's so different because ultras, it's not really competitive. It's just finish. Just finish. And whoever comes in first is just gets as much, like, it's just as important as last. It's kind of a cool concept. So I got people, they're like, drink this. So I'm slamming Coca-Colas. I haven't drunk a Coke in like years. I'm eating like candy. And I felt so much better immediately. I'm like, So that was a good learning lesson.
Yeah, welcome to the world of glycogen stores.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Literally, I learned about it like in real time.
Yeah, just for your information, I'll just give you a quick little quick little two things. One is we change up the vocabulary. What you eat for recovery, for your normal daily activity, for that is nutrition, right? What you put in your body while you're racing before and after is fuel. So when you change the concept, you change the way your brain thinks. Okay, fuel, carbs, stuff that'll go to your muscles fast, like this.
Yeah.
Coke goes to your muscles so fast, but it also leaves very fast.
Yeah.
So you've got to balance it. But that's so when you think about fuel and you're like, okay, you're right. Every day, whatever my normal meal is brown rice, broccoli, and chicken, beef, and sweet potatoes, something like that. That's nutrition. Fuel, goos, gummy bears. Yeah. It's all that stuff that you could eat because it's going right through you and you're utilizing it right away. Yeah. But it is a science, and it definitely is a science to get there. Everybody's different. Everybody's.
Well, last thing too, here's another rookie mistake. This is even worse than a rookie mistake. As soon as I was done with the race, I had booked my flight to go back to Florida. So immediately when I'm done with a 50-mile race, I'm like, and it wasn't like first class seats. It wasn't even on a good airline. I'm in this small little seat, just ran 50 miles. I'm cramping. It was terrible.
Oh my God. I remember the first time, and this, and I knew about all this stuff, is I did the Chicago Marathon, and then I was meeting my family at Disney World. So literally it was like, get done, go back to the hotel, shower, shave, blah, 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 get to the airport, and then get on one of those like Disney buses from the airport to take you right to the thing. And oh my God, and it was horrible. And I knew this stuff, right? And I even tell my clients, and especially the Disney ones, right? When you're done that day, when you cross the finish line, you are required to spend 2 hours walking around in the parks. It could be slow, it could be monotonous, but basically your structured prescription is you go back to the hotel, shower, nice hot bath, take a quick nap after you eat, blah, blah, blah. But sometime in the next few hours after you're done, go to the parks, walk around for a couple of hours, and then come back. The people that do it and they comply, by Tuesday, they're asking me when they're going to run again. The people that don't are cursing me out on Tuesday, yelling at me, going, they're like, I am dying here. And I'm like, yeah, you got to move that lactic acid out.
You know what? See, this is the power of, and this is why I'm big on people hiring coaches, like when you want to do something, because just that nugget you just shared, that makes all the difference. And like when you're with a coach who like specializes in something, you can drop nugget after nugget after nugget after nugget. So it's like kind of jumping in a time machine, right? It's like, I love coaches.
I appreciate that. Can you explain more about that analogy of the time machine?
Yeah, you're speeding up time. So It's like I get to take. So how long, Brad, how long have you been into endurance running? How long have you done that?
It's been about,
not necessarily coached, just participated in it.
About 16 years.
Okay, so 16 years. So if I hire you as a coach, I get 16 years of trial, error, wins, loses, what works, what doesn't work. And I get to get that downloaded in me every single day, right? I don't have to go through that in 16 years. So what took you 16 years to learn, through, I'm sure you spend a lot of money and time and effort and energy. I can pay you a small little fee compared to what you've done, and I can get the benefit of all that. I can get the benefit of all that. So like, that's what it's like. It's like stepping in a time machine. So I've learned over time, when I want to do something and I go into a field I don't know, I go hire a coach. I'm not going to waste my time trying to figure things out. I'm going to go hire a coach.
That's huge. That's a huge nugget. And I appreciate what you said, because I know that's the same thing. Like, I'm not big in the gym. I want to get there to that point. And yeah, I would hire someone like you, totally, especially with your mentality of you going all in, right? You're not stopping, you're going all in. And I know that I'm going to have somebody that's got my back that's like, hey, what are you doing?
Especially here's too, though, as we get older, we start to realize, okay, we're not going to live forever. So time is really the greatest commodity. It's a limited resource. Money is not. I used to think it was money. Money's not a limited resource. There's abundance of money. Time is a limited resource. So I don't want to waste time learning. And I would rather condense that time so I can spend it with my beautiful wife. I can spend it with my kids. So when I do go train, it's like Coach Brad tells me, do this, do this, do this. Not only do I know exactly what to do, I'm clear on it. I can focus on that. And when I'm done, I don't have to think about it again until the next time I train. So it allows me to leverage my time. And as like most people probably listen to this, I'm sure probably maybe you're married, maybe you have kids, you probably have careers, other responsibilities. It's all about leveraging your time. Like when I hear people say, I don't have enough time, I tell them, well, then you're screwed. Because you can't get no more. Everyone on planet Earth has 24 hours a day, 7 days in a week. If you think you don't have enough time, go listen to what Elon Musk accomplishes in a day. And you'll realize very quickly, it's not that you don't have enough time. It's just your utilization of time sucks. But the good thing is you can fix it.
Absolutely. In the real world, not the real world, my day job is I'm a project manager, and I get hired by different companies to do their projects. And that is the biggest thing that we talk about. That's our biggest part of project management is resource utilization. And do these developers or construction foremen and welders and all these guys, do they have enough time to get the certain task done? And is those tasks going to be done in a way that in a path that will get them to the end, to a finished, completed product? And that's the same thing with us. So as coaches, like when I have somebody that's going after a 50 miler, well, we set up toll gates and ways. What is the goal? Is it to finish? All right. Well, then we've got distance toll gates. We need to be at 15 miles by this point, 25 miles by this point, 35 miles by this point, and for them to be able to run at that point. Do you have a time goal? All right, well, we have to do 15 miles in this sort of time by this point. We've got to be able to do 25 miles in this time by this point. And then the workouts are meant to get them to that point, right?
This is why I get so excited, like hearing, and I hope your listeners understand and get what you're saying. Just like how you're rattling everything off. It's for time, it's for this, it's for this, it's for this, it's for this, it's for this. And again, I'm going to go back to it because a lot of people don't understand the power of hiring a coach and a mentor. You're doing it right now. You probably don't even realize it because it's just something you do. You're literally, I didn't make up this rule, the Pareto principle, which basically says 20% of the work that you do is going to produce 80% of the results. So you've already figured out the 20% that's going to produce the biggest results, the most bang for your buck. So instead of wasting your time doing stupid stuff, which most people that don't know what they're doing do, because that's how you figure things out, you figured out, here's the best way to utilize your time and get the maximum results. That's golden. That's golden. So I hope the people listening to this catch that and understand, because this applies to your whole life. It applies to your whole life. So this is good stuff. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I got really excited.
No, I appreciate it. Let's talk about how you finally jumped into like actually turning the gym into your company. So just for everybody, that Tywin has is TywinKalandyk.com, and it is elite coaching is basically what he does. And first of all, you got to listen to his video. It will fire you up. It is awesome. So you got to listen to that. But I digress. Let's go back And tell me about how you decided to start moving into coaching in this direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember exactly. I was 27 years old. And again, this is at the time I was just kind of I found myself going through the motions. Kind of the person I was telling you about at the beginning that I was like, don't be that person. Don't be the person's average. Don't be the person just going through the motions. I found myself doing that. I was going to work and just dreading it and just not happy. And I was just going through the motions. I got to the point where I was drinking a lot. And I learned later on I was drinking because I hated my life, not because I wanted to drink. It was just a way to kind of escape. And I remember looking in the mirror one day and I'm like, I started letting myself go, started getting a little fluffy. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? And then again, I just adopted that mindset of like, okay, let me get myself together. And then people started asking me, like, what are you doing? Like, how did you change? And they just started coming to me. I had no intention on coaching people, but they just came to me. So I was like, all right, well, you just do this. But again, my mindset, I've always been an elite athlete, always trained with an elite athlete. And I realized real quickly, most people don't think like that. Right? They're just at a different level. There's nothing wrong with them. It's not that they can't, but they're missing pieces of the puzzle. So I had to learn how to teach a person that has never been into gym, never worked out, no self-confidence, failed at everything in life when it comes to their fitness, take that person and be able to give them immaculate results. Because my favorite people to work with are everyday normal people. I don't work with elite athletes. To me, that's boring. I mean, at least for me. I love taking your average person. When I say average, I just mean your everyday, what we would call ordinary person, and transforming that person into an absolute beast. That's my favorite thing to do. Because what I get to, because when you're training elite athletes, it's minor little, right? They're looking for those minor little tweaks. I'm trying to have someone have a complete transformation where like, they look back at their life last year and it was a train wreck. And they look back at their life just a short year later. Not only do they physically look amazing, their sex life is amazing. The relationship with their kids is great. Like, it's just like, it just brings tears to their eyes just talking about it. It's like, okay, that's what I do. Those are the people I work with.
I love that. And for a very long time, Tampa General Hospital, I actually developed their running program, and I spent 8 years doing what we called 0 to 5K. So it was the employees that had never run in their life, or they hadn't run since high school. And these are, 30s, 40s, 50-year-olds, and they would come out and it was a slow step up. I guaranteed them that they might be tight, but they wouldn't be sore. But after that, and the amount of people that came out there and says, I hate running, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, then why are you here? She says, because going to the gym isn't giving me results. And I'm like, okay. And they would sit there and they'd yap. And all the 8 weeks they would sit there and they would be just complaining, but they showed up every single time. And I'll never forget this woman named Julie. She came across the finish line, big giant smile on her face. Yeah. And she goes, oh my God, that was so much fun. Yeah. And I'm like, you don't realize it's the first time I'm seeing you smile, right? Yeah. And she goes, oh, stop it. That whole thing.
Isn't that such a great feeling?
It is by far. When I started coaching, I'd be like, I was always like, yeah, I love watching I said, my clients coming across the finish line is a close second to me coming across the finish line myself. And it's switched over to a point where coming across the finish line myself is not nearly as exciting as watching my clients come across the finish line, or my kids on both track and field. And what you were saying about elite. So let me tell you about Cam. So Cam last year in 2022 was running 10.8.
Wait, Cam,
his name is Cam. I'm just
give me your son.
No. One of my kids on my track team.
Okay. Got it. Sorry.
So Cam ran 10.8, 10.79, 10.81 in that area in 2022. In 2023, and we beat him to death, blah, 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 blah. So he's already at that elite level. And, he ended up taking the state at 10.65 a year for 0.25, 2.20, 0.15 seconds.
Yep.
It took a year. And people don't understand that. Now it's only 100 meters, so you don't have a lot of time to like move that.
Yeah, but still, no, you're 100% right, because one of the things that separates an elite athlete from just your average, everyday, ordinary people is they understand clearly they don't need immediate gratification. They can put all, like, use an Olympic athlete. They train for years and years and years and years for a 10-second race. So they understand like the ability to put off instant gratification. Your everyday person, they have, because of all the dopamine hits we get and how they were raised and the society we live in, they want this now.
Yes.
So they could never, at the current state, be that, but they can become that. They can become that, but it has to be taught and it has to be broken down, just like we were breaking down the races. It's little chunks. People are a lot closer to where they want to go than they think. They're just taking all the wrong paths.
100%. I agree with that. Christian Baumgartner from Norway, Ironman champion. You know what I mean? 3 years to take off 10 minutes.
Yeah.
On an 8-hour race. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And then he ended up getting the championships. You know what I mean? It's like 4 or 5 years to get 10, 15, even 20 minutes. And I say a half an hour is even a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For an 8-hour race, that's a lot. And, end up being a championship, taking 10 minutes off. And that's at the elite level. But what's really nice is that when you are starting, when you're getting people like you and I take on people that just starting, or they're somewhat new, they've got a couple years under their belt, but they haven't got to that elite level, or not elite level, but the elite mindset. Let's call it a mindset.
Yeah.
And they stumble into someone like you that they go from, okay, I'm going to go for fitness. I know I got to do test on Tuesday, back and tries on Wednesday, legs on Thursday, blah, blah, blah. And they just do the same thing. And then they get to you and they're like, no, heavier, or however your methodology works. And you're like, no, you got to go. What are you doing? More and more. And they get to that point where, what are you thinking? And they get to that level, and all of a sudden they see these gains again, and it starts to move up, and that just drives them harder and harder and harder. It's really an amazing feeling. I can imagine that what you feel like when you get those emails saying TR baby, PR my squad. Or
I love what you said. You just said something that I never put it in these words, but I was like, oh, I'm stealing that. You said an elite athlete, an elite mindset. And that really breaks down what it is, because here's the deal. Most people will never be an elite athlete. Everybody can have an elite mindset. Every single person. So my elite, John's elite, your elite, it's different. You're not comparing. It's the version of you. That's all we're working on, is becoming the elite version of you in all sectors of life. But first, it starts with your mind, and then the body, and then it just it goes into everything in life, because how you do anything is how you do everything.
I agree. And I think it stems with, I need to be the best me. When we talk about, and the biggest thing that I'll give to long time or even short time endurance athletes, somebody that's been around for about let's say someone's been doing endurance events for about 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to beat we're just trying to do better than we did the last time. We do a 5K. We just want to do better than we did our last 5K. Sometimes it happens. A lot of times it doesn't. But there's a lesson. There's usually a lesson in it. You know what I mean? But that's it. It's always being the best you possibly be. I want to PR every time. And we go for those PRs every single time. We don't sit there and go, oh, I'm not going to PR this one, so I'm just going to sit back on my heels. And if you do find yourself being a little bit slower that day, you're like, okay, on this event, it looks like I am not going to end up PR, but I'm going to the next event. I'm going to do that one. I'm going to hit it as hard as I possibly can. And when you go into training, that, okay, I'm going to hit my PRs, or I'm going to hit my reps with that, with a certain weight that I've never done before. Last time I benched 135 8 times. Today I'm doing it 10 times.
You said something really good there. And so the way I kind of run my program is, I'm like, okay, I always tell people, if you're going to play a game, make up your own rules. So what I mean by that is, set yourself up for daily wins and multiple daily wins. Because if you're playing the game where the only time you win is to get, let's say, a PR. Well, you're not always going to PR, or you're not always going to beat your time. That is a terrible game to play because you're setting yourself up because you can't always do that. So what I mean when I say, okay, if you're going to play the game, let's play a game to win. So set your wins, like know your wins. Well, what is a win? I got up on time. Okay, I made my workout, right? I said my prayers before bed. Whatever it is, you set up multiple wins. So now you're in the habit of winning, right? So it becomes like losing is just not an option. You become a winner. It's no different than when you're around a top athlete. Like if you're around Michael Jordan, he didn't think about losing. It didn't even enter his head. Mike Tyson, when he was the greatest boxer in the world, was at that time. He didn't think about losing because once that seed is in there, it's going to germinate and it's going to grow. So if you take your average person who, honestly, you're used to, life runs through you and runs all over you and stomps you and just beats you down. It beats you down. So you're used to losing. It's kind of like the example of you gave earlier, the girl that was running with you and training with you, and every day she was showing up and complaining, but she kept showing up and complaining. And after she finished, she was smiling. Now, here's what that really was. That was a defense mechanism. She had probably been let down so many times in her life and failed at so many things. She said, if I go every day and act like I don't like this, if for some reason I don't make it, well, I didn't like it in the first place. That was a psychological defense mechanism by her brain. Because if she didn't really like it, she would have never showed up. So this is what people constantly are doing to themselves, right? I know you see it happens, like you see it time and time again. It's like, these are defense mechanisms. This is why you need somebody to pour into you and elevate you and tell you something that you don't even believe you can do, right? You don't even think, you're like, wow, he really seems to believe in me. Like, Brad, I'm sure when you're pouring into people, they're probably like, wow, this guy really believes, he really thinks I can do this. Yeah, of course. And bam, 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 bam. So a lot of times clients, you can buy in other people to leave. And sometimes that's what you have to do. A lot of times, this is what you have to do. You're buying someone else's belief. You're borrowing it. It's like every time one of my clients come to me, here, borrow this belief. They come back again, here, borrow this belief. And every time they come, when they give it back to me. But every time they give it back, they've taken a little piece of that belief and they've stole it and put it in their pocket because it felt so good. And then I hear, borrow this. And then they steal it and a little more. And I'm okay with them stealing in this case. And by the time you're done, they've stole my whole belief that I've had in them. Now they have that same belief. Now they no longer need me and depend on me. They have the belief system. They have the structure. They know exactly what to do. They still stick around because of the family and the community and all that, but they don't need me.
That's exactly right. And I love the way you said that. First of all, is to have that library of beliefs that you could, that they can come in and borrow, right? And give it back. And they take in, just like when you read a book, right? You take the book, you bring it back, but you've retained the knowledge. Same thing. And I think that's an amazing freaking analogy, and I'm stealing it. You don't have a choice. But yeah, no, I understand. So here's a question for me to you is, what is your stance on, let's call it a tough love? What is your stance on that? And do you use it, or is it something that you? Yeah, let's just ask the question. What do you think on what's your stance on it, and how do you utilize it?
The answer is yes. However, it doesn't work on everybody, and I don't use it on everybody.
Okay.
Like I've seen some people and they're just always like that doesn't work on everybody. It will work on some people, but other people they'll be gone. They'll be gone. So do I use it? Yes. It's easier to use on men. Men are much, because we're much. Shame is probably one of the biggest motivators to get men moving. So it works really good for men. Women, it's a terrible thing to do. It's just terrible. So it just depends on the client. I would say that if it's not to their advantage, I'm not using it. I'm not going to just use it to use it. Like I've seen some coaches, they're just like yelling and screaming and just being alpha. Like I don't need that. I'm confident in myself to not need to do that. So if it doesn't benefit the client, well, let me say it like this. I don't do anything that doesn't benefit my client.
Right.
So some cases it does. With males, I've found a lot of times it does, but not in all situations. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, I agree, and it's also the strength of the mind of the person that you're giving it to.
Yeah.
And I'll to give you a little quick anecdote. Same coach, John Nolan, like one of the best coaches around, and he does the same thing I do. He's got a roster of private clients, and then he also coaches track and field and high school cross country. But there was the one day that he called me up, and he's like, Brad, he goes, I don't know what's going on. I says, I see all your stats and all your training looks great, but you're not executing. You're not executing. You're getting to the competitions. You're getting to the 70.3s and the triathlons, and you're not executing what you're training. I says, and I don't know. I mean, I don't think that I'm the right coach for you. Basically was just like, because if you're not executing, then I'm not doing my job, and I don't want to be known as the coach that's not doing their job. He says, I'm better than that, so I don't know what you're doing. Now, that's not like him saying, oh, you better do it, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, what's wrong with you, blah, blah, blah. Now, it was tough love in a different way.
Yep.
And the very next 70.3, I PR'd by like 45 minutes. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, because you didn't want to let him down.
Yeah.
Like you felt, he like I don't know if he intentionally used reverse psychology on you, but that's really what it was. It was like, all right, well, so now you're like, well, I don't want to let my coach down. Like, it's not his fault. So it looks like, boom. And that's what good coaches do. Good coaches know what buttons they need to press, because the buttons are different for different people. And then this is why I like really getting close to my clients and having this connection. I don't do this like cookie cutter plan for everybody. Like, I get very close because I need to push people. You have to push people's buttons, but pushing people's buttons looks different, just like the example you just gave.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, it's like every single time that my clients are competing, I'm on a tracker, and you've probably seen it. You can get on a tracker and you can watch them, and you're like watching them come across, and you're hitting the things, and then I usually end up with, "Hey, great job today. It didn't happen the way you wanted it to, but it looks like you had this split was right and this split was good. Maybe we could have done something better here. How did you feel?" And I started asking questions. The ones that are obviously, I'm going crazy when they PR.
Yeah.
I'm nuts. And just like your dad was back then, I don't have kids. So these is the closest thing I've got to kids.
Yeah.
And when they're PRing, I am all smiles. I am like, and people think I'm nuts because I'll be sitting in the freaking, somewhere in a store or at Starbucks or something. And all of a sudden I'll be looking at the tracker and it'll pop up and I'll be like, yes.
Yeah.
And people look at me like, oh, sorry. Yeah. And they absolutely think I'm nuts. But then there's the people that I'm like, okay, what happened? You know what I mean? And I don't know if they're expecting me to say, well, good job, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, what happened? This is not the plan. What happened? You know what I mean? Yeah. And then they'll come up with something. We'll talk, okay, well, this tells us what we need to work on. So I totally agree with that. There's some people you can't sit there and go, you didn't do what was planned. We had a plan. Why didn't you execute? There's certain people I can talk to like that.
I think one of the things I tell my clients up front is, because I like to be very, I just tell the truth. Not always, but ever since I got saved, I'm like, I'm just always going to tell the truth. And I tell people, look, I'm not nice. And they kind of like, I'm not nice. I'm kind, but I'm not nice. Because nice, I can tell you something that's not truth. I can tell you something that's a lie. That's being nice. Oh, your hair looks great. Meanwhile, no, it looks terrible. Oh, that dress looks good, or, oh, you're not fat, or whatever. That's being nice. I'm kind, but I'm not nice. My job, not just as a coach, but as a person, is to push people to be their best. That's what a good friend does. A good friend doesn't lie. A good friend tells you the truth, even when it hurts, even when it's something that they know you're not going to like. I tell people up front, I'm not nice. I'm kind. I'll always be kind. But it doesn't mean I'm nice. There's going to be times where you're probably not going to like me. But I guarantee you're going to look back and be like, man, you were right. Thank you. Thank you for just telling me like it is. I've never had a client not say that.
No, those juicy sweatpants don't make your butt look big. No, not at all. You look skinny. I understand.
Yeah.
Nobody should be wearing those juicy sweatpants. And it's a privilege, not a right. That's horrible. But anyway, yeah, wow. So we've covered a lot. There's been a lot of stuff going on here between elite beliefs, between some great coaching nuggets, the way to talk to people. This has been amazing. So let me just reiterate. So in the show notes, I'm going to make sure that we have your website.
Yeah.
Which
I think probably the best place for people to find me is on Instagram. That's probably where I get the most value. So you can find me at Tywin Kalandyk. And then I promise I'm going to start making more YouTube comments or content, I should say. That's probably the best place to find me is Instagram. That's where you're going to probably get the most value. The next second best thing is YouTube.
Yeah. Tywin Kalandyk at Tywin Kalandyk.
Yep.
And he's also got a Facebook page.
Yep.
And it's a lot of it's duplicated, which is what you're supposed to do. So whichever is yours of choice. And you do have to take a look at this because he does some great stuff. And you get to see his beautiful, beautiful family that he has. So you need to take a look at that. And you know what? Your wife's arms look jacked too.
Yeah, my wife is a savage. She's a savage. She's an absolute savage.
Well, the two of you probably are like that. I can't even imagine you two in the gym together. Like,
yeah, we're average.
That's awesome.
Her mindset is like exactly the same. Like she's super competitive. It's awesome. I love it.
And then Tywin Kalandyk, TywinKalandyk.com, and you need to go into, and then there's and I'll put it in there, but there's this. He's got another one of your. I can't remember where it is, but I'm gonna go to that one. He's got a landing page that's got his video on it, and you've got to listen to this video. It's just him talking, and it is so down to earth and real. And if it doesn't inspire you, he's not the right coach for you. But I'm telling you, I got chills. It's like watching it, and I was like, wow. I'm like, I'm going to the gym, and it definitely. So you got to take a look at that. But and then
I'm actually going to shoot Brad. I'm going to shoot you over a link. I actually just got done recording a training where I break down my whole system. I just give everything away for free. So anybody hearing this, maybe like, okay, maybe it sounds like something. I literally broke it all down, giving it to you.
All right.
So I'll send you the link. So if any of your listeners want to break down on my system and how exactly from A to Z, how I get people from start to finish, I broke it all down. So you can have
awesome. I love that. And thank you so much for that. And I'm going to put that link in the show notes as well. And you know what? A lot of you don't realize that I also do blog posts that always go along with this. And that's also on lifechangingchallengers.com. But here's the guy, right? Guy comes from regular working, grew up, started in foster care, got a great family, learned how to take everything to the edge from the beginning and continued to do that even through you went broke at a certain time, got embezzled, and then kept going on his entrepreneurial journey to the point now where he's got his elite coaching, champions elite coaching program. And if you want to get buff and you want to like go beyond your own limits and find out, what you can do with yourself, take a look at the website, take a look at the link that I'm going to show you. And there's also testimonials in there, and you can see he's got before and after pictures, and it is redonkulous, for lack of a better term, these before and after pictures. So you got to see what he did with these people. It's absolutely amazing. So Tywin, thank you so much for joining me today. For the rest of you, if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, please go ahead and hit the like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you always know when a new episode is dropping. If you're on Apple or Spotify, please go ahead and leave a review, even if it's a bad one. If you've got something that's constructive criticism, please let me know, because I can always make it better. I'm always looking to strive to make the podcast better, and you can help. So with that, Tywin, thank you so much. And for the rest of you, we'll see you in the next one. Well, that wraps up another episode of Life-Changing Challengers. I'm your host, Brad Minus, saying thank you for joining us on this journey of transformation. If today's stories inspired you, please take a moment to review, share, and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps us reach more listeners and create an even bigger impact. Remember, every challenge is a chance to grow. Until next time, keep pushing, keep challenging, and never stop pursuing your extraordinary.